The opt into the Jax for BLG again. It feels like maybe they have this master plan all along.
Yeah, Jax AD carry, Jax Annie maybe. I think anything really is the choice here for BLG. It kind of just depends on how they're feeling. I was wondering whether or not they would overlook this Sejuani pick or not, just because now you have, you know, pretty clear setup in the top side if you want it. Jax and Sejuani has been one of the strongest duos, relatively untouched throughout a lot of the split in the top side. So BLG now have that avenue to work with, and it makes me wonder whether or not we're going to get something like a Yagao Silas or anything a little more carry orientated, or whether or not they will lean back on that Annie when it comes to it. But I feel like an Elk R3 AD carry pick likely to roll through. EDG see this and they just look at the Ahri and the Wukong, very, very standard mid jungle that we've seen a whole bunch. And we know what it does, very mobile, very active at looking for snap engages and picks, and can very easily and quickly roll over a team fight if they can get the first kill in.
I do really like the Wukong still for Jiejie, but it's a little bit of that increased mobility / pressure for the Ahri for FoFo. Another pick that I feel like is going to opt into the playstyle of EDG maybe a little bit more stably than the LeBlanc did. I still think they had a lot of big moments to try to pick out, but the damage just wasn't there. We'll see the opt back into the Xayah here for Elk.
Yeah, Xayah for Elk again. I think it makes a lot of sense. When you already lock in the top jungle, you want to secure an AD carry. Otherwise, you start to look at slightly lower tiered ones, even though I feel like the options would still lend to Elk's ability to play out team fights. He'd rather pick up something like the Xayah after having such a strong performance on it. And now for BLG, can likely look to remove away some top side picks that they feel like Ala would try and respond to Bin with. And I like the Fiora call out just simply because there's a lot of CC, some of it a little bit telegraphed. So you don't want to have to play around the riposte if you're looking to play into the top side. And EDG, remove away Yagao's Veigar. We've seen this answer a whole bunch. It's a very traditional one. I feel like oftentimes as well, I'm seeing, even if I see the team with Veigar lose, oftentimes Veigar is a pretty big issue to play around. So I like that call out too, as they also move away that
nuts on it, man.
Yeah,
he's been absolutely insane with it, and set up a lot in the last series against OMG on that pick as well. I actually do like the Thresh ban here against Meiko. I think the pick enables a lot of that trio we were talking about for EDG a lot of the time, and it does take away that lockdown, at least potentially, against BLG. We'll see what the last ban is here for EDG, though. I expect maybe some more of that support pool, but also Yagao could be that focus. It's the Lissandra.
Okay, I quite like that. I think it just makes sense. Two direct, you know, one-to-one counters to the Ahri. I think Yagao's still going to have plenty of options if he really wants to dig a little bit deeper. He can. I don't feel like those are the kind of champions that will truly sort of hamstring Yagao. And I mean, he's eyeing up the Akali potentially. I'd like to see it.
I love to see this one. Opted to first time in the spring playoffs, at least, that Yagao will be piloting this Akali, and it is about this top trio now. It feels like, yes, you have Elk that'll be just as normal late game carry here. But you've got this powerful trio between the Jax, the Sejuani, and the Akali that you can really take a lot of those skirmishes against. We'll see the Gragas actually locked in again for EDG, even after the lackluster performance in game number 1.
Yeah, lackluster didn't really bring the impact that he needed to in the team fights. I think one-to-one he dealt with Bin fine, and hell, I mean technically
doesn't look
Jiejie
very
that came
happy.
up there.
I'll just say
he doesn't look
he did not look very happy to be playing the Gragas.
No, but I mean, it just feels like he doesn't necessarily, or his team doesn't really want to put him on something that's a little more volatile, because they may just believe that Bin just gets out of the lane scot-free, like, yeah, or just wins flat out, right? So just going towards that neutralizing matchup, and now BLG, what they look towards, they've got a lot of strong skirmishing on the top side, and if they go towards this hovered Heimerdinger, then it spells to me a relatively defensive bottom side, right? Very hard to dive. I think Renata is also probably the more likely option of the two, and they will go towards that Heimerdinger. We've seen, you know, fall out of favor since the nerfs. I feel like he's still actually playable, but it just teams, you know, they see a nerf, they go towards something else. It's not quite as oppressive as it used to be, and that's right.
Yeah,
Heimerdinger was in map, but I think this Renata is just going to buy so much space, right? A lot of engage now available to EDG moving forward, and having to constantly play around that massive berserk AoE ultimate. It's just going to be very, very difficult, and another tool that they'll have to worry about whilst BLG are diving the back line.
And we have Leave back on comfort on this Aphelios. We have Elk in the late game carry position, a little bit on the Xayah here, but it is that spacing you were talking about from On. It's the potential for Game number 1 saw BLG find an early advantage and snowball it all the way to EDG's base. Can EDG found a bounce back? We got game 2 of our lower bracket finals, EDG versus BLG.
Game 2, Xayah ring out with as much energy as game 1. And EDG need to find that counterpunch. They need to find that slip into a haymaker or an uppercut to just kind of humble BLG, because that was a very, very quick game, all things considered. And I don't feel like
they
we
attacked
were
the right
expecting
places.
it to win. Yeah, I mean, we weren't even expecting them to win on that siege.
You know the weak spots on the Arbor, and you get easy dubs. It feels like they attacked bot lane, they attacked objectives. There you go.
All right, now I will say, I think, kind of taking a step back and evaluating the team compositions 1-to-1 against what they were last game. For BLG, the playmaking opportunity onto the bottom side is perhaps a little more limited or a little more nuanced, harder to execute in comparison to the previous game. However, I just feel like the top side skirmishing is so much stronger that it might not matter.
Yeah.
As that will potentially be the payoff instead for them. And again, I think level 6, right? Level 6 for all of the top side is where I start to get a little bit spooked for EDG. I feel like the best teams in the world that use Akali proficiently too often. Oh no, Meiko.
Oh man, come on! On is a menace down there. He knew what was coming. They will still connect another dredge line there to get a little damage back on him, but On was skirting the edge, waiting for Meiko to pull that dredge line.
Yeah, you know, actually he hit the wall so he could get the reduced cooldown to then find the trade-off.
That's what it was.
Yeah. We got there in the end.
All part of the plan.
Exactly, but as I was saying, those proficient teams with Akali, they'll wait until level 6. They'll fight at the Dragon. If it's still up and available, they'll definitely fight at the Herald when that tool is up. And it just feels like the lockdown can come so quickly, especially with the melee champions immediately stacking up the permafrost for Akali, for Sejuani rather. So EDG, what will they try and do? Because they've got a lot of lockdown on the bottom side with Nautilus just existing, and the burst damage to follow up with Wukong certainly present has been, finds himself a pretty even trade by the end of it. 1-1, of course, you have to remember Gragas does have sustain baked into his kit, so can survive over the course of the laning phase.
Go back to game number 1 though, and again, Ala was down a little bit in CS in the early parts. We had the play down bottom lane from Ben where he caught up a little bit, but Ben at that point had so much pressure in the side lanes, there was not much for Ala to do. I'm looking for a change of that here in game number 2. Ala needs to be a part of the team, right? And he needs to find an in. Shun finding his in. He did not get seen here. Oh my goodness, we got Secret Agent Shun here coming in behind FoFo. Yagao steps up at the last second though. FoFo trying to dodge out, and that will be the flash utilized by the EDG mid laner.
Yeah, I was expecting Shun to actually wait out for his Q to come back up.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Decided to pull the trigger anyway. Still finds FoFo's flash, so the return gank 4-6 still very potent.
Handshake connects. Wow. A lot of damage there. Leave getting very, very low, but they're going to go in with the engage because Jiejie is here. You got Shun right behind. Elk flashes out, though. First blood should go over. No, they don't get him. There's the bail. They finally do. They can't get a kill back. It's first blood to EDG. This is a scrap and a half in bot lane. The handshake doesn't connect. They can't get the kill. They finally do get a trade, but that's 2 to Jiejie.
Oh my god, the red buff and minions. Just the enemies of both of the champions in that exchange. Like you said, 2 for 1 by the end of it. Goes the way of EDG. Finally, something falls in their favor. Elk almost walked out. I was surprised he didn't turn around and just go for the kill on to Leave when he was bleeding away. Leave held onto his flash. Now the kills, the way they fall, pretty much everything I think went onto the junglers. Let's look at how it all starts off. Handshake into double stun into root. Cleanse does reduce some of that duration, but it doesn't really matter. Cleanse is a little bit early from Elk. I don't think it matters too much. The key thing really is that it didn't necessarily get rid of an ignite. Red buff ticks Elk below to bring him into the bailout form. And then I think red buff actually claims Meiko's life. I think it's a creep. So red buff gets 2 kills there on both sides for each jungler. Neck and neck stuff, but it's EDG that pull out ahead with the kill lead.
Yeah, they do, and Jiejie now enabled with 2-0 on this Wukong. Very much more in a proactive state, it feels like, than game number 1, where that was very much lacking. And we needed that duo to come online, and this time, at least one of the duo has a little bit of resources. We'll see if he can get back onto the map and be influential. Again, we've said in the past, EDG are very, very prominent around early objectives and around early dragon stacking, but BLG have been up the same alley here recently.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think on that point for Jiejie as well, he, you know, was on the Wukong last game, but I think the crucial thing that was lacking was pretty consistent, you know, setup tools away from just himself in the lanes that could land and very easily net you some enemy resources. I think on the top side, you know, you could always go towards Bin, and I mean, he did try. He traded off one and never came back. So
he tried.
I think in this game,
it didn't go well.
Didn't go well. I think this game, now that you've got the Nautilus on the bottom side, it just makes repeat ganking so, you know, potent at times, just because the dredge line setup is so free. But BLG, they're reading into this quite a lot, and they're continually bringing Shun down to this bottom side just to ensure that it's at the very least always a 3v3.
And that's the important factor, right? Is BLG have opted into this strategy so far for this best of 5 is focus bot lane. Do not let Leave get ahead and keep the 3v3 a Baruin. You do have that dragon up here, movement from EDG, but it should be actually the startup here for now with the movement from bot lane.
Yeah, moving from bottom lane, the wave is crashing on the bottom side. It will be cleared out quite quickly because of the root caller, so I wonder whether or not BLG will feel super confident walking into the river here.
They really want to fight this. Oh my
Yagao's
goodness.
level 6.
The charge doesn't hit. Yagao goes in. They have now pulled and Leave. He only has to flash. Oh no! He goes back! Tragedy has struck for BLG in favor of BLG. And that is a kill pack. The dragon that was never supposed to be theirs. And my goodness.
If
we
I
have
saw
to see a
that
replay
right,
of that.
I think
it was the Q, right?
Yeah, it's the Q. It's the Q. He's queuing.
He was auto-targeting.
With the Severum, yeah, and it auto-targets anything it can hit. And it just brings him back into the pit.
Oh my god, no way!
It's... you can't think about something like that in a moment to moment. You really can't blame him for this. It's... So he's queuing backwards because he's obviously kiting, right? But the auto-target...
No, it's
done.
done.
No, that's a regular right click. Oh my goodness, that's just... Wow. Wow.
I don't have words, Jamada. That is tragedy. When EDG need something, they got it. But then after that, it is tragedy, an unfortunate circumstance that leaves Leave, the main carry of EDG, down now. Now, he will have a lot of chance to get back, but that is something he's going to have to recover from in terms of this game. Now, we will see a reset of the map state. We have a Rift Herald on the board. It was Shun who got absolute control of that last game. We'll see EDG put a little pressure top lane, see if they can get that.
Yeah, see what they can find here. CC, pretty prominent, and I mean, Vin's just gone in.
Oh, he gets cast back, and there's a boop and scoop. We'll see if he can try to get out of this one. He does have the CC. Nope, it's not going to be enough. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
On has killed Leave.
Well.
On has killed Leave.
Leave has left the building. Leave is going back to the mountain. And that's a fairly sizable wave. Plate's even going to go over to this duo as well. Cannon wave, fortunately, the next one coming in, so it shouldn't be too much missed.
Execution.
Nope. Just going to body slam back while Yagao will ensure that he goes all the way back towards the tower. And this is a massive lead pulling ahead. CS difference almost 20. 2 plates as well. 175 gold extra. Just feels really bad.
We have to get a replay of that, right?
Like, yeah, we will. Yeah, you know the observers won't let us down. Come on.
How did this happen?
You know what they're about. If ever cool, but no, it's just...
Oh,
man. I mean...
It goes from bad to worse, Jamada.
That was a lot of burst damage anyway, and I think cleanse or not, Leave was dead. But speaking of no cleanse...
Don't do it, Leave. Walk away. They're back.
Surely not, right?
No.
I mean,
he just wanted the one. He just wanted the one.
Oh, if he loses red gun, okay, if he loses red gun, I think he dies. Because he might need it for the extra health.
Either way.
Leave,
don't do it, don't do it. Oh, he dodged out of the handshake. Although he can't get out of this one. He dies again. 0-3 on the rookie of the split here. That is exactly the weak point BLG are capitalizing on.
0-3. It's not the opening in game number 2 that Leave needs, and BLG know it, and they're just focusing it down time and time again. They don't even have to blow ultimate to Mazel to find that pick. They just find it, and now more CS being missed. A potential silver lining, the plate might die and no one claims it, but like 3-0, you're down still over 20 CS.
The wound is starting to fester here, Jamada.
Yeah.
There was like a small scrape, I would say, at the beginning of the game. It's like a full-on blow tear with like some rot coming out of it, because at this point, this is a strong effort from BLG to focus his bot side, and it's reaping benefits.
Yeah, it is. It's doing wonders for BLG. Because, I mean, without Leave being, you know, a prominent team fight figure in the later stages of the game, it has, you know, the question has to be asked, where will they find their damage? And especially in a composition like this, I'd have to be honest, it's on the lower you know, side of the spectrum for damage. It's a lot of CC, yes, but it's not a lot of inherent burst damage. Maybe at that one item, they'll be fine, right? And they can try and find skirmishes. But the issue is you're already having to play against hypermobile carries. You've got a Featherstorm to also go through. But if that wasn't enough, you've also got to go through a bailout. You've got to go for a Renata W. So
and
even
a
if you manage to...
Renata, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only one thing that's going for them. It's that On has gotten all the kills.
Yeah.
But maybe this is On's moment to shine. It will have that Rift Herald, though. It looks like they're going to just straight up use it bot lane, get this outer tower, and get first turret of the game with all 5 plays.
Yeah, they want out to get as much gold as they can. 30 seconds away from the Dragon as well.
Trying to go for the engage there.
Yeah, maybe they can turn it around, but Jiejie just wants to try and keep information as one-sided as possible down here. Meiko might come through the sweeper and clear that out. I think it's about time. No, they're good. They get it. So, I mean, BLG yield positioning to go back into the river with 10 seconds left on the Dragon. But I feel like the bigger issue still is actually that Yagao is in the mid lane and will have first move over, I'm pretty confident.
I do like this, though. That strong trio we were talking about between Jiejie, Meiko, and FoFo is starting to get on the roam, is starting to try and grab control of the map a little bit. And I still think they have so much lockdown, they have so much decisiveness in that trio that they can find a lot of dividends for EDG on the map. They will actually get their first Dragon because of the pressure they were putting out, and BLG on the reset.
Yeah, okay, so BLG give up this Dragon. Kind of in similar fashion-ish to game number 1, where they gave up the third one, right? They put down the Herald for charge for a tower. Except, you know,
yeah, we got a 5-on-5 fight for the second Dragon in game 1.
Yeah, so I feel like for BLG, they're quite clearly confident to let that one go. Ocean will be the Dragon and Soul. I don't think it's that impactful thinking about it, but you never know. At the end of the day, any buff you can get will always be an advantage over your opponent. I think this is where things
we got our fishing rods out here, Jamada.
Yeah,
we're fishing.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, things could slow down. Speaking of fishing,
do you imagine fishing with a bola? I wonder if people do that. I don't know if there are people that fish with a bola.
I guess they technically kind of do, right? They've got like they throw out those big like bola-esque nets. And
but a bola is like just like a string between two like. We'll come back to it. Because Jiejie is fishing. It's not with a bola. It's with the giant stick. But, you know, the fish are too slippery, and Ben himself on the Jax got the TP from Yagao just as a safety net. We'll be able to make it out.
Yeah, Ben walks out. I guess so. I guess you're right.
All right, so back to brass tacks. Fishing with bolas.
I don't know, man. I'm not really a fishing guy.
You didn't fish when you were in Texas? It's like a tried and true Texan tradition.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, go out at like 6 a.m., go fishing.
Yeah,
be tired as heck by like noon and sleep till 4. You know, it's the tried and true Texan way.
Maybe the next time I'm out in the States, in the South, I'll
take you a real good fishing hole.
I'll find myself a good little hole, get myself a fishing hat, find a nice little place to camp out.
Make sure you have a permit because those are important. But we have, you know, some fishing permits on the Rift right now, and Shun is activating his because he's looking for some mighty fine fish, and they look like EDG at this point. They will be soft in their backs, a little bit of hovering around mid.
Just a touch. Herald's up in 45 seconds, so that's why both these teams are congregating around the mid lane, but also just trying to take control of this river entrance. That's an engage from BLG.
You get a nice engage, and Yagao is on the flank here. FoFo able to get out that hostile takeover. Already used the feather storm. Hughes Elf is down now as well. He gets the bailout though. Can he survive? He goes out of it now as Leave is finally firing away, and nobody is touching him. That's a double kill to Leave. Another kill goes over to FoFo, and EDG are on the board.
All right, that's so good for EDG. They needed something. It's going to be traded a bit on the bottom side by Bin, who with so much time in isolation might just get this tier 2 because he's got a cannon wave with him. So that'll be 600 gold traded back. I'm not entirely sure what Elk used the Featherstorm for. I think it could have been a dredge line, or maybe it was the ultimate from Meiko. I'm sure we'll get a replay of the skirmish to confirm.
He's been playing pretty aggressively with it as well, so it might have been something a little bit more aggressive.
But either way, as soon as he uses it, Jiejie just finds his window and immediately goes on to him. Let's see what it is. Is it just the depth charge as soon as he comes into range? Is it just an aggressive? It's just, wow.
He was trying to get out of the damage there.
Yeah, it looks like maybe the damage
but
from
it's
the
still
Infernum.
connected.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about this call from Elk to cast BR so early. I think in your line of thinking where you say he's just using it for damage and aggression, I think that's the case. But, I mean, fighting in that angle, kind of against the choke, to then get re-engaged on with no defensive tool, just leaves you sitting duck, and EDG pounce. And even though they don't necessarily get the Herald immediately after the fight, they return back to the map, and they'll get it because of it. So they finally get their first important neutral objective. EDG.
It is a resurgence, though. It's definitely a far cry from what we got in game number 1, and we were asking what that momentum for BLG does, but what that disheartening loss would do for EDG. And I feel like they bounced back pretty heavily. They're getting at least a little focus towards Leave now. He's gotten 2 kills. He's not 0-3 anymore, but it is about the objective control that they've slowly started to garner for themselves and getting a little bit of that stability we talked so heavily about in the draft.
Exactly. They need to continue to use those tools from the side of EDG. Just keep the pressure up. I think as long as it's not necessarily BLG. Here's the thing. I feel like BLG's composition, especially with the Akali and the Jax, they will probably thrive so much off, you know, kind of finding that first kill. It's not necessarily about the resets like how it is with Ahri and FoFo, but I think when you've got the assassin pick, Elk, it's going to be fine. Hexflash won't yield anything. But when you've got, you know, these kind of snowballing-esque team fighters, I feel like if BLG are on the front foot with an engage, more often than not, they'll likely continue to remain on the front foot. So I feel like for EDG, if they can just continually try and, you know, do things like this, get in front of the objective, and just ensure that they're the ones picking the fights, not getting flanked like this.
There's a TP coming in from EDG though on the back. That's a nice double knock-up. They've got Yagao locked down. Bin over the wall though. Allah has set a flank here. Bin dies to the dragon as now should have found the back line. Here comes the rest of the damage, but EDG have a big old turtle shell. They use it well. Yagao gets the bailout, does get 1 kill back, but it'll be a double for FoFo.
Not bad again for EDG. 2 for 3, but they've got their jungler so they can pick up the second dragon. All of a sudden, that collapse from BLG kind of just very quickly defanged. It looked real threatening, but Bin didn't quite have the level of impact that perhaps many of us were expecting him to have in that backline. Still, finds Leave. Bit of a potential Josh, but that dragon will go over to EDG.
Close.
Yeah, no shenanigans, fortunately. But yeah, interesting fight. Bin didn't even teleport for that. He just walked his way there, by the way. So I'm wondering, when the replay would be queued, as Bin's just rotating down from the bottom side, and this is why they're going in BLG. But I feel like Yagao is so far away for so long. Oh, he fails to flash. Didn't catch that in line.
He tried to flash. Yeah.
And I think just that fail flash limits the level of his options by so much. Shun tries to go in to assist. In the middle of it all, he also gets charmed. So it just keeps him in place for so long. Kind of a comedy of errors, to be honest with you, but also just generally a really solid response from EDG, looking at it in the face. So BLG, a little bit shaky in that team fight on the execution, more specifically with Yagao. But the collapse itself, the idea, definitely very sound. So I think, and keep on looking for it. But EDG, ready for that one. Will they be ready for this?
The tower goes down, but they've got the engage on the EDG. They've got the big hostile takeover. On still alive. He gets the bailout here. They're on to Leave. They're trying to get him down. The Gale Force gets him out, though. He's trying to take on the world here. He's able to survive a little bit longer, but Yagao finally gets that kill, and it is a return for FoFo getting his own. It'll be a double kill for Yagao. We'll see it as the dust settles. A 3 for 2 in favor of EDG.
Yeah, 3 for 2 in favor of EDG, and they get an extra tower on the back end. This feels much better. This feels like an EDG with a little bit of resurgence life breathed into them. You remember we were speaking about, you know, how important momentum could be for a lineup like this. Going out against JDG in the 3-0 fashions, come down here and lose the first game the way they did. Felt a little bit rough. This time around, a lot more life in game number 2. It all starts off actually more of the dredge line than it does the collapse from BLG. And I think it just puts EDG.
It's a bold call from BLG to make this play.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think as soon as that dredge line comes in, it just feels like maybe you don't want to play the fight without the Xayah having Featherstorm, but they play it anyway. But I think you can see, you know, Yagao, Bin, those two are going to be the core carries in a lot of the backline diving team fights. And EDG, it's going to be a bit of a game about who can find backline access first, murder the backline, and then potentially return back to the front line.
And we've seen BLG struggle sometimes when it comes to the mid-late game, when it comes to these decisive moments around objectives. We've seen them throw big leads as well in the past. While they didn't have that this time around, it's still that kind of diciness in that mid-game transition that is coming back to bite them. And I think EDG are taking full advantage of that. But the man that is taking absolute advantage of the situation is FoFo on the Ahri for the second game. He is 6-0 right now. And this pick has been such a level up so far in this series for EDG as a whole to play around.
Definitely is. And I think a champion like Ahri as well can do wonders at dealing with dives. I'm sure Namera is likely watching this series and will be very happy with the Medjai's pickup. I don't know if he's going to be happy with the rest of the build, but I feel like...
I know he hates Everfrost, so probably not.
Yeah, I think he... I can't remember what it is. Is it just Everfrost Banshees he's not really a fan of? I think here... Honestly, it makes you not die against the Akali super easily. It makes Akali have to commit a lot more resources, but also, I think the Banshees just kind of stops you from being picked off by Shun with a long-range ultimate. And there's not too many consistent ways to really burn the Banshees as well, so long as FoFo is playing at range. So, I feel like the pickup, you know, theoretically, makes a lot of sense. And we'll see whether or not you can continue to find that success in the team fight.
I do expect a little bit of uptick in pressure on this bottom side here. We got about a minute for another dragon to spawn. EDG want to opt into that, get soul point. It opens up so many avenues on the map, and we already see positioning around this mid lane to get that priority for the dragon. I think BLG will want to try to contest this. They don't want to give over that map pressure that a soul point gives you, but I'm wondering how they approach this fight, because it does feel like even if they have the second item completed for Elk, they are looking at side lanes right now to take advantage of.
Yeah, I feel like side lane's definitely point of pressure. I think I just realized Arla's actually gone towards a more tanky build. A little more suited to damage over time with the Jack Show and Sunfire Cape. Like you mentioned, BLG bring numbers towards the top side. They're not really interested potentially in this dragon.
Oh, but they're interested in Ben. He has TP. You should get out. Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I guess that's that.
And they're TPing into the bear. They're pulling the dupe on EDG. Look at the members of EDG. They are sprinting over here.
They're in Narnia, man. They are so far away.
TPing in now.
Coming in from Bin 2.
FoFo goes in. FoFo's the big damage dealer, but they can't get in fast enough. The Baron has gone to BLG. They got to try to find an escape. The Featherstorm comes through. They might be able to turn this now as they find FoFo. No damage coming out. They got what they came for. There's 3 members stuck in the pit, though. They got to find a way out of this one. Jiejie goes in with the Cyclone. 2 members over the wall. Shun flashes. The hostile takeover used. Meiko tries to go in. But the Baron has been secured for BLG, and that's 5 purple capes.
5 purple capes indeed, and they look quite swaggy. BLG, all 3 of those members that were in the back of the pit all had dashes. Shun did expend the flash. I think his Q was still on cooldown very briefly. And they escape with the perfect heist. No one falls, and Bin just being that reefer, you know, he's like a red cape to a bull. If you get that, and you know, EDG were willing to fall for the aggression, and unfortunately it cost them the Baron. We'll see what BLG can get with the buff. There are quite a few structures on the top side of the map. Mid lane tier 1 still up and available, but I think the range at which BLG have to operate with could limit their ability to siege, so I think they're going to have to look for dives unless EDG really overstep their bounds.
And I am wondering now, with this kind of 5-minute timer BLG have put themselves on, they will need to contest that soul going over next to EDG. And it's about buying time until then, but getting this 3rd item for Elk, getting another completion for Yagao, and really putting yourself in a best position. Oh, they get engaged on here. That's a cast out, and all of a sudden, Shun finds himself on the wrong side of the team. Yagao gets locked down as well. Shun should go down, doesn't get bailed out this time. Ben gets a nice little double counter strike, and Elk is starting to fire away with these feathers, but you can't get any further in because you know that On is able to handshake you in, and the Feather Storm's still available for Elk.
Yeah, a lot of defensive tools still there. I think that's also the irritants of playing against a BLG composition like this. They've got the diving tools, but also like moving in, especially to the bottom side, right? Against Elk and On. Big AoE
Elk is playing
tools. Elk
so
is putting out the
aggressively right
damage.
here, but they actually are able to take down Ala. The hostile takeover comes across, does connect on the one. The tower goes down. Meiko getting solo. They found leave, but the charm doesn't connect. Meiko getting blasted down as Elk uses that feather storm. That's a big Moonlight Vigil, and the bailout is not going to be there yet again as EDG strike back at Elk. But they do lose Meiko. They lose Ala as Bin is setting up a flank yet again here.
Bin setting up the flank.
Nope.
But he's going to go for the reset. Going to go too aggressive. Feather storm at the end of that play. A little bit wayward, but
A little while.
you know, it's okay. You understand what he was going for. Just wanted as much forward damage as possible, and you can't blame him for stepping forward, looking for more kills. On the back of this, just melts through Ahri. He's just to Elk.
That's
he's
full
barely
tank,
attacked.
by the way.
Yeah, and look at this as well. Leave
And that
gets
was before
clipped
Lord
barely.
Doms got completed. But
Exactly. So scary. Dredgeline misses, which forces.
oh, that was bold
I mean-
from Elk.
Yeah. I don't typically like to. Yeah, that flash was just a bit, not it. That's
It
how I'll
was
phrase
bold. That's the word
Yeah.
I will use. It was bold.
Yeah, it was brave.
Yeah, definitely wants that one back for sure. We'll see back though. 2.5 minutes before the dragon spawns. We're already contesting over a vision, trying to get some of this down, get pressure down as much as possible. They still, for BLG, have this outer tower to play around down here, and that gives them a lot of options.
Does definitely see what EDG in particular want to do, because at the end of the day, it's such a weird game. 'Cause it feels like, for the most part, EDG have had so much control over it, but now with BLG finding that one Baron, one cheeky little Baron, into kind of wresting control of the map again, everything is kind of 50-50.
I gotta say though, FoFo's really stepping up here. I know we talked a little bit about it at the very beginning of the series, and this is kind of, I guess not a redemption for FoFo, but BLG last year was a failure. He was a part of that team.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at that, even though it is just been on the other side still there, I think you still look at that and you're saying, I want a little bit of extra give to this matchup because of that history. And I think for FoFo in the second game, where there was a very lackluster performance on LeBlanc in game one, this Ahri is looking like another level here.
Yeah, it is. And I just feel like typically throughout the entire split so far for FoFo, he's always been that consistent factor for EDG. It's kind of a rarity that you can be like, oh, FoFo's had a terrible game here. There's barely more than a game or two where you can be like, yeah, FoFo maybe didn't step up to the mark. For the most part, even in losses, he's kind of
Got the hat now.
that factor. And like you say, he's got the party hat, he's got the death cap. I think 14 stacks on the Magi.
I don't think you
well.
can
He's gotta
call
be cruising.
I don't think you can call an item that's called death cap a party hat, unless
Well.
you're. Yeah, I feel like
You know,
Meiko, there might be a dead party hat for you though. They do find Elk's feather storm on the end of it though. A hostile takeover did get utilized. EDG in a little bit of trouble. FoFo,
Ooh.
that's your main carry right now. It was 7-0. That's 1,000 gold shutdown to Bin.
My goodness me.
You
didn't
can't
really
have
quite
that. That
catch.
cannot happen.
No, I mean, it's just the berserk, catching him on the very tail end. And that's all it took for him to get one shot. So, without FoFo, I don't think that realistically EDG can contest this dragon now. He sold the Magi, rest in peace. The stats.
I mean, it was 14-4. Like, it went from 14 stacks to 4 stacks. That's a huge change in momentum there.
It is indeed. And BLG stopped the soul from coming through. There's still 5 versus 4 on the map. Baron spawning up, but I feel like it would be a pretty hasty decision to make. I wonder if EDG try and read into the resets here at BLG or not. I feel like the fact that Yagao and Shin are still here should give them a pretty good indicator that perhaps those were going through, but won't be afforded the opportunity to go and try and take down that Baron immediately. So the purple worm's on the map, and it's the only objective. We'll see how the vision control starts to settle. I think the collapse has generally been quite threatening looking from BLG, though it's not always come out in a way where it's just been complete dominance from Yagao and Bin outside of maybe 1 or 2 team fights. As get a look here, it looks okay. As soon as Meiko makes it out, you're like, all right, the fight should be more or less fine. Jiejie is walking it out, but just here.
What? Excuse me? Oh, FoFo, don't go back and look at that one. You're just gonna be angry. That's unfortunate, but it's capitalization from BLG.
Yeah, capitalization from BLG. I'm gonna call for the riot. You know the one, screaming guy. You know the one. Yeah, you know what it is.
I know the one. I know the one.
I'm sure chat's spamming it because yeah, it's one of those annoying things where the particle effects kind of look like they're starting to fade, right? But
it makes it look cool, okay?
Yeah, you know, it makes it look cool.
We do see EDG consistently pressuring around this Baron pit. Leave got his third item. He is on that IE. That's a big power spike for the Aphelios, and they might look to capitalize. Yagao goes golden, stops the engage. Now you got the Glacial Prison 4, the handshake in. Hostile takeover onto 3 members there, but nothing else gonna come through. There were a couple ultis burned on the side of BLG. Just that Moonlight Vigil in the cask as well from Alun Lee.
Yeah, tools used, but still many available. I think for BLG though, those big tools useful for engage, not there. So
they want to use this item spike.
Yeah, they do. It's about how Bin and Yagao can find backline access.
Meiko couldn't find it. That's a double counter strike, not going to go through just yet onto Bin. The counter strikes though coming out from EDG from that Cyclone. Yeah, FoFo going forward, still has the Banshee's Veil available, and BLG's health bars are not looking great. Got the Chakram stacking up for leave. I think that's a fight that BLG need to walk away from. Here's the Feather Storm used. The feathers are there, Blade Caller not popped, but EDG back onto the Baron.
Yeah, they get so many health bars. Flash as well from Shun. Taken off the board, and now they're back on the Baron. It's melting, Mazel. It's gone.
It is. He's got all the chakrams. They're TPing in, but it's going to be too late. Elk has sniped out one, though. He's got some feathers, but those chakrams, I don't think you want this fight. As Bin has come back with full health, but the Baron buff on 4 members for EDG.
Oh, he was a blender. And as BLG went into him, they would have been shredded. EDG get themselves the Baron. They walk out of it, only losing Meiko as the sacrificial lamb. BLG gonna feel a little bit sore about that one, that she couldn't find the angle. The good one for Bin to get onto the backline. I mean, Bin tried, but look at his itemization. It's pretty much just all MR at the moment. And as soon as he walked into range of Leave just one-shot him, man. He went from full health to like 20% very quickly. So until he picks up
as soon as you see that little ring of spinning discs around the 200 years chamber, I think you can walk away. Because he does a lot of damage. And I think that's a beautiful use of that item spike, first and foremost, from EDG, but also their compositional awareness.
Yeah, and a lot of it just starts off from this here. The dredge line doesn't connect to keep the chain CC going, so unfortunately, there's no lockdown onto Yagao to be had. This engage is pretty clean from BLG, but again, it's the 2 turning tools, right? The Berserk, the ultimate from the Sejuani as well, and at that point it's very, very hard to really make fights happen on your terms. But look at this, as soon as there's no counter, he just gets one-shot by the turrets and the chakrams. The front line is good from EDG as well to just push back BLG. And again, another turret, 2 autos, just the one. Just more shredding coming through. BLG have to get on top of Leave, and they have to just remove him from the team fight.
We're about to get the Carousel of Pain returning right front and center. We got 35 seconds for a soul fight for EDG. We have BLG already here trying to push down some vision, trying to get some control around this, but it's going to be a 5v5 mano a mano.
Has to be soul for EDG on the line. BLG have to try and deny this one away. Otherwise, the team fights are just going to get more obnoxious. And frankly, I don't feel like BLG want to try and approach that critical mass moment. EDG have the opportunity to try and slip back through into the river now that they've got mid lane control. But look at the flank from Bin. FoFo's half man marking it, but he's not really. And now the engage comes through the front line.
Bin is going to find the flank though. They've got to turn it around. The bailout comes through, but Shun already down. You get the counter strike, but it's not enough. They don't have the front to back. The Moonlight Vigil, Yagao finds the back line, but he gets blown up by Leave. And he has arrived to the table, as now he's having something to say. As EDG want to go forward on to BLG, but the dragon still in the eyes of EDG, as Shun is already down.
Yeah, Leave. He's still got flash and he's got red and white. Bin has to try and find this angle. He's inside the pit, but they find him out. The blue.
They're going to try to go on to Leave. They don't get the dragon here. They try to go for counter-strike, but Bin has left himself out to try. Elk versus Leave, but Leave is stacked up with the chakras, and he flashes out another double kill. And BLG, they've been taken to task in those team fights. They've lost the soul, and now EDG clean house with an ace.
That's the rookie of the split right there. Game 1, he was shut down. And Game 2, it started to look like the same story. But in the later stage team fights, when he's actually allowed access to right-click people, he starts murdering names. And now BLG are going to lose this inhibitor. There's a long death timer on 3 members. And EDG are going to look to capitalize.
The beast has awoken. We have arrived at a series that goes 1-1, and Leave has stepped up, woken up, and arrived in his own. EDG go to game 2 with a different task, a different story. They come out on top, and now we have ourselves a series, Jamada.
We have a series on our hands, is the phrase.
Is it in our hands? Oh my goodness.
It's not in our hands.
It's right here.
It's here, and we're witnessing it live.
It's right. Well, I thought we were coming to me, but it's right there.
There we go.
It's right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a series. No, but an incredible one from EDG, and we give all the praise in the world to Leave, who was extremely focused. In the first 15 minutes, he was 0-3.
Yep.
But I think FoFo was the bridge builder that we talked about throughout this series for both teams. He was the one that was able to get them into that late game, give them a very strong strength to play around in mid lane on the Ahri, and it paved the way rather for Leave to come in clutch in late games. Those timings on the weapon for the chakrams, it was all so well timed for EDG.
Yeah, I just feel like from the perspective of EDG, I think just having, again, we said it word for word. They needed some kind of platform somewhere to stand on moving into game number 2, or this game is just going to feel difficult. And it felt like, I can't remember the very famous statue, but this. I'm pretty sure it's the Greek one where you've got the massive man holding up the well. That
Atlas?
was FoFo. Atlas, yes. Thank you for knowing more than I do.
FoFo is Atlas.
FoFo is Atlas in this game.
He's got the
for
jawline
EDG.
for it, I mean.
he does, to be fair. I think just being able to set up so many team fights in the early stages and allowing Leave the time to get there on the item department, right? I think being focused down so heavily, Elk always having that one-to-one lead for so much of the game, did make things quite difficult. But I just think from the BLG execution perspective, they were never really able to find anything after that Baron takedown, right? I think assuming that's such an LPL
That's an
gold graph,
LPL
isn't
gold
it?
graph right there, deservingly so. But I think for me specifically, BLG went into a very execution-based composition. They had a lot of strength in their top trio, but it was so difficult to crack the shell of EDG in a lot of the team fights once everything came to bear, right? Game 1, they didn't have to deal with that as much. They had so much strength coming into those team fights, but this game, it was so much more difficult. The backline access was just not there because EDG were playing them so decisively and peeling away for Leave a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I feel like the difference makers in this game between last are actually the swap arounds of bringing in the Ahri and then also having the Nautilus on your side, giving yourselves the agency as EDG to also, find fights on your terms, but then additionally also the flexibility of Ahri either starting fights or ending fights, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just kind of moving away. Had the Medjais for so long, I think ended up with a score of 707 by the time he actually finally died, and it was a pretty random pickoff as well because the ultimate from Renata is a bit interesting, but I think having those extra tools just give them the extra inch they need to make it a mile, and BLG were never able to get Bin in those same threatening positions like they could in game number 1.
Yeah, and I think it's first and foremost a great thing for EDG not to go down another game, but for there to be some of that stability. And now I do wonder what kind of switch up of sides, things that we do get for game 3, as BLG will have that decision. But we will be taking a little break till we get to that point. So we'll be right back. Don't